Well, good morning. It's finally time to go ahead and put the lift kit in diesel daily. This Jeep has been great. Everything's checked out since we finished our oil cooler seals. I've had one leak. I just had to tighten a hose clamp on the lower radiator hose, and that's it. Everything else has been good. We've put about 1,500 miles on it so far, so ready to go. So next comes the lift. I want to get the snow tires off of here. The summer tires I have are on Wrangler wheels, and they're too big to fit without the lift anyway. So we'll get the lift kit in. They still might not fit. We'll find out. Might need some spacers or something. It should be a pretty easy install, but we're gonna run over to Dad's, throw it up on the lift, see what happens. Hopefully, nothing scary. Different throttle return spring. Okay, so like always, we're off to a roaring start. Finally got the wheels off. I didn't realize that these nuts are capped, so I had a struggle on the driver's side where the cap was crushing because I wasn't using a deep 3/4 because I couldn't find a deep 3/4. And it looks like, other people have struggled with these in the past because that is a new stud. So capped lug nuts, there's one that started to crush. No, hate those things. So we'll get some solid ones. Now, with the lift kit, I think the spacer in the front is actually going to be on the bottom on this guy here, but I'm not sure. In the rear, I'm thinking it could be top or bottom. So we'll pull it out and figure it out. If I was going to guess, top generally makes more sense, but who knows. Like we knew, we have new brakes, which is great. These are all grooved to hell, but they are new. I don't know if this is a leaking wheel seal or if I got some oil on there, but I'm going to guess it's a leaking wheel seal. So going to have to check my differential fluid. I think we had the same issue on this side. Yeah, I don't remember spraying any oil in there. It looks like they might have replaced it. That's a new cap thing, so maybe they just did a bad job. Don't really know what's going on here with that. Maybe they just oiled it up for rust purposes, whoever did the brake job. Anyway, long story short, everything looks good under here. You can see some of the places that we undercoated are still looking really, really nice. Once we're done with the lift, we'll clean everything and undercoat everywhere. So we get a nice layer on there. Let's pop open the lift kit box and see what we have going on. Okay. So I was wrong about the front. That looks like the top. So it replaces the top strut area. Overall, I'm pretty happy with that quality. The welds, they're not great. It's fine. These tacks on these captives I don't love. I wish that looked better. But we're not going to over-tighten anything or go crazy. Looks like we have nylon locking nuts, and then this has got to be for the rear. Again, the welds are few and far between and not very good, but it's thick. I mean, it's some heavy gauge steel, and the paint looks decent. So, pretty happy with that overall. Let's, of course, there's no instructions, which is fine. We'll figure it out. But I guarantee that's for the front. So, let's take a look up there and figure out what we have to disconnect. So pretty obvious that there's 4 bolts there, which will have to do from inside the hood. So down the Jeep comes. It'd be really cool if I can just undo those 4 and the whole thing drops. I have a feeling we're not going to get that lucky, but you never know. Fingers crossed. Let's take them out and see what we get. All right, so unfortunately we have a decent amount of stuff to move. As I expected, if you remember this crossbar from the turbo, I can't really see it on this side, but that's the rear 2 bolts on the strut mount. You see it here, no problem. There's one there, and there's one right there. So those 2 are the rear of the 4, and then there's 2 more under here. So we have to move both this fuse panel and that coolant recovery tank, which is a bummer, but I don't think it'll be too hard. We've had the coolant out before. This looks like it just unclips, and then some easy stuff to move. So let's get it torn apart. Hopefully it'll be easy to get to. Okay, those popped out of the way pretty easy. Just a bungee cord holding that one up. These are our main fuse panels and lots of wiring and stuff, so I do want to be cautious here. Very expensive, very delicate. Was some mouse stuff under here. Luckily, the main wiring loom is not damaged. That would be a big bummer if it was, so luckily it's not. You can see, there's one, right down in there. So underneath this plastic cover is the rest of our studs for the strut. So this is just held on with a few 10 mils. I'm going to move over to the other side and see about getting that coolant out of the way. So since we've had this out before, obviously it was really easy. We knew exactly what to do. There was only 2 things to unhook, and you can see it was easy to get the nuts off of those 4 strut mounts, no problem. And is this loose? Let me try and bounce it. It is. You guys probably can't really see them moving, but like I suspected, that thing is not coming down. So probably have to undo, I'm going to say at least the upper control arm. I'm trying to think what would make the most sense to relieve that pressure. And maybe the sway bar link. Not sure. But we'll get it down and we'll get the spacer in. Got to go take those bolts out of the other side now. And that side came right out, no problem. Just 3 10 mil studs, and the plastic came out for the fuse box mounts. Unfortunately, it's ridiculously brittle, and I didn't even touch it. Like, it just fell off. There was a mount right on this corner, one of these stand-up mounts. This one also broke, just from poking it with a screwdriver. So I don't know if I'll get a new one of those or just stick it back in. The mount is fairly important. It's this one here. So it keeps the whole thing from moving. To be determined if we're going to get a new one. All right, so the secret sauce here was pretty simple. Upper ball joint and sway bar link, and it fell right out. So now there might even be enough to get the new strut plate in there. I'm not sure. All right, well, with a pry bar on the A-arm and that A-arm up there, so the control arm up top, all the way up, I was able to get the strut just tilted out and put that in. However, I don't think I'm going to be able to get that back in there. And I know that the correct way to do this is to take out this bottom bolt here, but it's not happening. So what I'm going to try and do is pop this pinch bolt right here and get this strut to slide down in this bracket, which I don't have high hopes for, but I already tried a compressor on here. It's just not doing anything for me. The springs are so squishy that it won't go down, so we'll keep trying. Okay, well, we had to go deeper. So I realized almost immediately after I put this in, there'd be no way to tighten these nuts with that in place. So pulled it down, got it going on here, and the way that we got this control arm low enough, I think, to slide this back in. I don't know yet, but I'm feeling pretty good about it. Undid the tie rod end, undid the CV, so it is literally, that control arm can do a 90 degree if we wanted it to, except for now this brake pad wear sensor. But it can go even further if we need it to. I'm not sure that we're gonna try, after I get this tight, to put that back up in there with this as loose as it is. I'm hoping. Well, again, with a bunch more disassembly, It's in! And holy heck, was that difficult. So I think if you could get this out, it would be pretty easy. Also, what would be helpful is if you had spring compressors that worked for this spring. Both that I tried weren't going to work for me. So I had to take everything apart. CVs popped out. The entire spindle's off. Everything had to move to give this A-arm enough movement to get me where I need to go. But then the A-arm was so far down, almost 90 degrees, that the geometry was off. So the strut was hitting right here. So I then had to compress the strut, just with a jack. And I had the studs just sitting on the inner fender. And then I hammered it, as you can see with that dent right there, and it fell into the holes. Obviously not an ideal way of doing this. Also, don't let your brake lines dangle. That's bad behavior, but I did it anyway. But it's in. So now reassembly on this side, and then we'll move to the other side. This is taking way longer than I hoped it would, but I think it'll be cool. All right, guys. Well, that was a bit of a nightmare, but it is back together. It is possible to do without a spring compressor. There's your spacer up there. Quite a bit of lift. Not a good design. I'm not happy with it, but this was $80 for this whole kit, where the next 2-inch lift that's a little more high quality is $700. So it's worth the effort, in my opinion, to just kind of run it. If I ever wanted to spend more than $700, I would be doing a 4-inch long arm lift kit. So this is the solution for me. Time to go do the exact same thing on the other side. Hopefully, now that I know what needs to come off, which is basically everything, we'll be able to do it a little faster. On we go. Well, guys, it's back together, and that's fully extended with a Wrangler wheel. The wheel doesn't fit. I need to buy some spacers, and I was just dragging my feet on that because I didn't know what size I needed. But it looks like I'm going to need almost a 2-inch spacer, which I thought was going to stick out, but it's not. It's just the offset is so narrow on these Wrangler wheels. It should bring it kind of back to where it was with the factory ones. So a 2-inch spacer should make that fit. Doesn't look like I'm going to have much of a clearance issue here, and if I do, it's all plastic. I can mess with that. I mean, there's a pinch weld behind there, but there's like a good 1/2-inch gap between that and the plastic. So anyway, I'm pooped. So this side took like 4 something hours or more, because it's just one problem after another. And then once I figured out the solution, the other side took about 35 minutes. So knowing what you're doing makes things go faster. Who would have thought? There's that one up in there. So anyway, we'll do the rear tomorrow, which I'm hoping will be a lot easier. Don't want to jinx myself, but it should be. Gonna have to pop that. Probably gonna have to pop the shock, and then just slowly drop it down with the tranny jack, perhaps. And I think, I don't know. You guys, that's enough for today. Got my ball joint grease on me. Got my dirty hands because I got fed up with my gloves. So I'll be back working on this momentarily, and we'll finish up the video. Okay, so here we are back at it. It's time for the rears to go in. I think if it's like my wife's Wrangler, there's a reason there's a hole here, and there's a reason I have these bolts right here, and that's because they actually are held into the top where the bump stop mount goes. So I'm thinking that's the scenario. So let's bring one of these over and see what we're thinking here. Yep, so there's the bump stop, which you just pull out of that cup. There's gonna be a bolt underneath it, and then that spacer is gonna sit right there, and you reinstall the bump stop cup. So that's the same as the Wrangler. We did a similar lift in the Wrangler. Should be pretty easy to get down. Definitely the shock coming off, definitely the sway bar, and then we'll see just how far it'll drop with the panhard bar and all that still connected. Hopefully enough. If I gotta put the external spring compressor on there, I can. I don't think I'm gonna have to. We were able to drop it enough in the Wrangler, it just fell out. Let's get at it. So like I suspected with the shock and the sway bar disconnected, shock, sway bar, the coil just fell right out. However, the other side I see is still in there, and I think that's because the panhard bar on that side makes it a little weird, but I think if we jack this side up, we'll be able to get the other one out, so not a big deal. These cups can be a little bit tricky to get out. You just push and push and push and pull, and then Eventually they come down. But we'll get that out, get the bolt out, and off we go. It's happening. Okay, so this side went in without too much trouble. No problem. This coil spring fell right out. This side, we had to do compressors, which spun on me, so it's all crooked. But it still came out. The reason we had to do that is because this upper control arm hits the fuel tank skid plate, and that's why it wouldn't go down. The axle wouldn't go down low enough for it to just fall out. So I'm hoping I'll be able to compress that again tight. So with the spacer, we can still get it back in, but it's gonna be tricky. Worst case scenario, I'll have to disconnect this upper control arm, or really worst case scenario, I'll have to clearance this, cut that out of there with a Sawzall or something. I'm not dropping the whole thing. That's stupid. So anyway, let's get that sorted out. I also noticed that I was dumb and had that touching the lift point right there. Nice dent, and it just shattered the aluminum. So that stinks. But it gives me my answer about removing these, which I thought were fairly useful, but they do make it really low. So removing these running boards, well, what was a question before is now a definite. Okay, overall a pretty easy install on the rear. Everything went right back together, no problem. Did have to compress both sides. And the trick is your bump stop. Just set it right here on the axle, let it sit inside the spring, and then you can squeeze in with your fingers and reinstall it. It helps if you put a little grease on there. But even with it compressed, the bump stop's still in the way. So quick tip, just let it sit, and then you can push it up into place after you've released the spring. Just some cheapo spring compressors, and they worked great. So it's in. Now I know already that the Wrangler wheels are not gonna fit. I tested them the other day. I need a spacer. Those spacers should be here tomorrow. Now would be a good time to do my transmission fluid change and filter. Looks like we have to drop this piece of plastic here, pop the pan. Should be just a quick drain and refill with the new filter, like 4 quarts. It's not completely flushing. I'm not a huge fan of flushing. I don't really believe in it. The other thing I might do is pop this running board off since I broke it. So let's do that next. Tranny pan right there. Looks pretty easy. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's it. Just 6 Torx is what holds it on. Allen head drain plug right there, which I'll try and pop it. You know, you never know with those. They're a little iffy every time. Put some brake clean on there and clean it out first. Let's get it down and get a new filter in there. Okay, so I don't have hugely high hopes, but I think this fits nicely in there, and we'll just be gentle. Yep, it came. We got lucky. Let's see what this fluid looks like. Ready? Not bad. I mean, overall, pretty good. I can live with that. It got a little sludgier near the end here, which I guess is expected. I also wonder if it took a little more than 4 quarts, but we'll do the procedure. I have a dipstick. I bought one on Amazon. I have a code reader, so we can do the Mercedes procedure, which is when you have to get it hot to a certain temperature, put in your universal dipstick, and then measure the fluid height on the dipstick. Very Mercedes way of checking things, but it's not the end of the world. So let that drain a little more before I drop the pan. And yeah, she's gonna be good as new. Okay, let's see here what we're gonna get. Start with these rears. Ooh, that's interesting. So check out how that is held in, guys. Can you see that? It's like a little clamp almost, you know, like an L-shaped bracket. That's strange. That's Mercedes. I'm sure the Mercedes guys out there are like, oh yeah, every 701 or whatever the heck tranny these are is like that. Well, I haven't done a lot of new Mercedes, so it's interesting to me. We can put that drain plug back in so it stops trying to get my arm wet. All right, so there's that, and then straight in. Come on. Not my most graceful, but it'll do. Very, very loose. I'm not worried about leaks. I'd rather have leaks than stuff that strips out and I can't get off. I'm sure there's a torque, a specific torque I'm supposed to do, but I don't have that spec with me right now. This looks like it might have two things holding it. We're gonna find out. Yeah, so the bracket, there's a 10 mil that has to come off first. So we'll get our 10 mil. This is sort of typical for what I've found with this Jeep being Mercedes engineered, is a lot of components have like other components interfering with them. So what I'm talking about right now, and you guys can't see it, is though one of these little clamps also has a 10 mil going through that clamp, which is holding a heat shield on. And I'll show you when I get it down. So there's the 10 mil. Now I gotta switch back from my 10 mil to my Torx. Drop the Torx. Okay, there's the Torx, and then slide the clamp out of the heat shield. And you see that clamp, which is just like all those other ones we worked with, is special because it's got the 10 mil built in. So that clamp is special for this corner of the transmission. And that sort of stuff, that sort of engineering is what's disappointing. I think the engineers thought they were clever, and I'll tell you right now, guys, the mechanics think they're idiots. That is just not what we're looking for. Specialty things, switching to two different types of tools, not good, bad. Okay, pan is definitely loose. Take her down. I'm pretty happy with that. I'd say it looks nice. Still a lot of fluid in there, but I can move it because I got my big funnel. Yeah, it's actually really dark. Very, very, very dark. So I'm glad I'm doing this. All right, so the filter, does it have any clips or anything? I don't think so. Looks like it just pops right down. Yep. Mess! Didn't move in time. I should have known better. There's a little bit of sparkle coming out of the filter right now, but nothing bad. It is 130,000 miles, and it is a Jeep. Ooh. That sparkle's on top of the filter. Ooh. Yeah, that's not good. Let me show you guys that when we, I'll pull the filter over to the pan so you can see what I'm talking about. So, as you guys can see, that's pretty black. Definitely not a nice clean red. I mean, granted, the pan itself is black, but it's not great. I've seen worse, much worse. I mean, it still has a nice red tint to it, but blacker than I'd hoped it would be. And then, look at all that sparkle. See it? And what I'm talking about is right here. That is all metal shavings. And, they're very, very fine. And I would say this is normal wear. But anyway, we're going to get this thing cleaned out and get a new filter installed and get it put back together. Just reiterating that sparkle, guys. Here's our magnet, and it's got a good amount of gunk on it. A lot more than I would hope to see, but that's all right. I think the tranny's still healthy enough. I'd say it's probably, half worn or a little bit less because of that clutch wear. Tranny filter is in. Time to take these mud flaps off. So the top bolt is captive. The bottom two our nuts and bolts that go through the rocker. Everything looks pretty clean. They're all 13s. I'm gonna put some spray on there and see about getting them off. Well, it's a good thing I did take that off. Look at all that surface rust starting under there. But anyway, so that was the broken one. Looks like these are just in here with speed nuts. So that's good and bad news, because generally you can break speed nuts, which is good, versus like a captive nut in there. Time to get this one off, and then we'll move to the other side. All right, well, it's a good thing I did take them off, because you can see, like, so here's the front and here's the rear on the driver's side, and they were plenty corroded, and these ears weren't doing anything. There's no reason to leave those on. So glad I did that. I'll take care of the surface rust on the rockers. I think it also makes these Jeep look a lot more off-road capable. I mean, they're definitely mom-mobiles when they have the running boards on, so I think that was a good idea. Now, the tranny's done, lift kit's done. Oil undercoating is not done, but I want to wash it first. And I don't want to put it back on the road right this second, though, because I hate putting tires on just to take them right off again, especially since I'm going to need an alignment. So I think I'm going to wait till tomorrow. It's a one-day Amazon, so my spacer should be in soon. I do have one tire, one of the new tires outside that's flat, so I got to figure out that. So I'll patch that if it needs to be patched, or remount it, whatever. The last thing I need to decide is that front splitter coming off? I don't know. Will it really affect my fuel mileage that much? No, it won't. It comes off really easily. It looks like they're actually kind of designed to be taken off for the trail. So I should just spin that. Yeah, and then it just falls out. I think we'll take it off. I think it'll look cooler without it. What do you guys think? Anyway, let's get it off. Well, so I found out why this was flat. There's a nail in it right there. And it looks like a tire shop marked it. Probably upsold Jeep owner on new tires, which is why you get rid of these. But I got this entire set, which are safe and road legal, plus wheels, $75 for 4. So, heck of a bargain in my mind. Gonna pull that out, plug it right now. Just got my cheapo plug kit. Off we go. Well, there we go. It was actually a broken off screw, not a nail. Perfect. All fixed. Well, guys, there it is. Amazon finally showed up last night around 6:30. So I threw the Jeep together and it was dark, so I just came home. I think that is an excellent outcome. I'm really happy with that look. It drove smooth as glass over here. You know, the suspension is not changed. Same springs. These tires are very much street tires. They come on Wranglers from the factory, Wrangler SEs, I believe. So they're very quiet. And with the running boards and the air dam off, it really does just look a lot more like a real SUV versus like a minivan. So I'm really happy with that. If we go direct side shot, it's nice and level. It doesn't really have the rake that it used to have anymore, except for the body line itself. So that was a great result. I'm super excited about it, and you know, Diesel Daily, the exception of needing an alignment now, is done. Finally, it's 100% done. I don't need to do anything else to it, which of course is really exciting. So next projects again are going to be continuing on Mossy Bus, and I'm glad the Jeep will be ready for the summer without any more maintenance or anything needed. Transmission, by the way, shifted perfectly over here. Didn't feel anything weird. I put 4 quarts of new fluid in it after we did the filter change. I'll get it up to temp sometime today and just double check. But based on everything I've read, it's a pretty generic 4-quart refill after doing that in this transmission, and you should be fine if the level was good before, and the level was good before. So like always, guys, thanks for watching Highlandshire. hopefully you'll see the Jeep out this summer with Breeze Wrangler. We'll go and get her winch installed. That's going to be a video, and then we're going to go test out both the Jeeps on some of the local trails. So, like always, on we go. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later.